You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I'm Brooke Makenna, but today's case is about the Kayak killer. Did she really drown her boyfriend on the river? Now, when a death that would normally be considered a tragic accident leads to an indictment, the public had many questions. Was the evidence against this grieving widow falsified by investigators, or did she really confess to drowning her own boyfriend? Was it one and the same that if she wanted him gone, she had to have killed him? It was 2015 in New York, and Vince Viafor was this funny, reliable 46-year-old man. He was always dancing, the life of the party, and this was even if he was by himself. But that didn't often happen because anywhere that he would go, he would attract these friends, these people who wanted to have a good time with him. Vince was an Italian-American and came from a super close family. He was also extremely social from a very young age. Now, he also had a huge heart for others. He was the kind of guy who wanted the attention, but he also knew how to give that to others and give them so much love. He never missed a holiday with his sister Laura and her family, and his friends would claim that no matter what they needed help with, he would be the first one to offer assistance. But even in his 40s, he was aging really well. He had been married twice previously, and it hadn't worked out, but he was living his single life at this time. Meanwhile, he was working as a project manager for the New York Office of General Services Design and Construction Department. He made good money doing so, but he didn't let his life become only about work. He was a very adventurous man, and one of his favorite things to do was to be outside, especially on the water, if he wasn't having parties with his friends. They would even often call him Vinny Shots. In 2013, he would actually meet his perfect match. On September 22nd, Vince would go into this bar where he met this waitress named Angelika Groswald. She had come to the United States from Latvia 13 years prior, and she was kind of working any odd job that she could find to stay in the States. She had actually started off as a nanny for this family that she had put an ad in the newspaper for. This was twin boys who were 2 years old and a 5-year-old girl, and after that she had planned to go back to Latvia. However, she really liked it in the States, and she felt like it was her home and that she wanted to stay. She was also studying for a while to be either a teacher or a translator when she wasn't working so hard to just make a living. But Angelika was actually 34 years old. She was this beautiful blonde who was exactly Vince's type in every way, especially when he heard that she too loved the water, especially kayaking. From dating to seeing each other every single day, it was only a few weeks until they moved in together. It was actually at his apartment, which was in Poughkeepsie. Friends and family saw how happy they made each other, and Vince would often joke that she was actually the closest that he had dated to his age since his divorces. He had often gone much younger, but she was actually quite close to his age. And they had no animals or kids to take care of, so they truly were free to do whatever they wanted, and they often were out doing something. But 5 months later, they would be engaged. Vince had taken her to a restaurant that was called a hibachi steakhouse, and he had put the ring in a piece of grilled onion and proposed. They planned to get married in Latvia that summer, go back to her home, and Vince loved the way that she was spunky like him. You know, they were a bit different. They didn't have the usual personalities. They felt like they had a different way of living, and he wanted to be around her all the time. He actually talked to his friends about wanting to have kids with her, which he had never previously wanted. He was really, truly, deeply in love. They appeared to be an incredible couple. And a year and 2 months after the engagement, it had been long after when they were supposed to get married, on April 19th of 2015, they decided that they were going to go on a kayaking trip. This is something that they did super often. And they planned a kayak from Plum Point on the Hudson River to the Bannerman's Island, and that would be in Vince's blue kayak and in Angelika's red one. Now, the couple had partied the night prior with their friends, and they left early because the rest of the group was going to go to a strip club, and they decided they just wanted to go home because they had this plan to kayak the next day. Sunday, they jumped in Vince's white Jeep Cherokee and they stopped at Wendy's for a quick lunch before going to the Sunoco service station to get some cigarettes for Angelica. Then they made their way to the Hudson River. They left Plum Point in their kayaks around 4:15 p.m. that day. This wasn't their usual place that they kayaked, though. They actually wanted to go to Bannerman's Island because it was known to have this beautiful abandoned castle looking building and gardens, and it was just this beautiful place to take pictures. Angelica knew of this island because she would go and volunteer to help out with the gardens, which is something that people could do. But most of the time, tours were the only way to get to the island. But she texted her friend, who was a volunteer coordinator for Bannerman's Island, and said, "Hey Barb, we're kayaking today out of Plum Point, and I'd like to stop on the island since I won't be able to make it there this Wednesday. Please let me know if this is a problem. Otherwise, I'll give you an update on how the geese are doing." But even though this wasn't normally allowed, she didn't wait for an answer. However, only 3 hours later, 911 would be called, and Angelica would be saying that her boyfriend was in the water and needed help. She said she was trying to paddle towards him, but the waves were too strong, and that eventually she couldn't even see him anymore.
911, where's your emergency?
My fiance fell in the water. Can you please call anybody? We are kayaking. My fiance flipped over. He's in the water right now.
All right, stay on the phone with me, okay?
I can't get to him. It's very windy and the waves are coming in, and I can't paddle to him. He's getting further and further away from me. It's very strong. I can see his. Don't see his head. Oh, baby! Oh my God! I can't see him anymore.
You don't see him?
No.
She was asked by the operator, "Is he wearing a life jacket?" And she said no, he was holding onto this flotation device for a while, but he wasn't actually wearing a life jacket. When the operator tried to tell her how to get to safety, she said that she was not worried about herself, she was worried about him. But as she started paddling toward the rescue boats that were coming her way, she too flipped over in her kayak and had to be pulled out of the water, but she was rescued. By the time the divers jumped into the water that was right near where Angelica was found, they could not find this blue kayak or Vince. This was said to be due to the horrible weather that was happening. There was so much wind, it was freezing cold, and it was making it very hard to search. Angelica was rushed to the hospital to avoid hypothermia, but the search was suspended for Vince because they didn't want to have a further tragedy of their divers who shouldn't be out in this water either. Once she was stable, she was actually taken down to the police department where she was able to contact Vince's family and tell them that he was missing and that the police were going to go out searching. Now, they asked if they needed to come and help, and Angelica told them that she could handle it. Basically, she was going with the police everywhere and they didn't need to come. They believed she was oddly calm, but didn't know how she handled tragedy, and so Vince's sister Laura actually came to be by Angelica's side during this time. Vince's mother was not informed. She was not on the phone calls because they believed that they would be able to find Vince and bring him home before they had to, tell the mother and have her be freaking out before they knew what was really going on. The next day, with better weather, police and family were out on this lake looking all over the water for any sign of Vince, and they eventually did find his blue kayak near Plum Point, which is where they, started off, where they were going to end as well. But Vince was not inside or anywhere around it. 9 days later, though, Angelica was taken in by detectives to be interrogated by the New York State Police. You see, two detectives named Donald DeQuarto and Neil Moscato claimed that at 12:35 p.m. on April 19th, they had taken her to Bannerman's Island to lay down some fake flowers in the water for Vince. But while there, they actually said she confessed to killing him. It turned out that when they were supposed to get married, Vince had called off the wedding, but they did end up going on the trip to Latvia because they had paid for it. This was one in many signs that maybe their relationship wasn't as good as it appeared. And after hearing that Angelica was in custody, Vince's family weren't surprised, even though they were known to love Angelica and to believe that they were good together. But they agreed that Angelica was acting very odd after his death or his disappearance because he hadn't been found. They believed there was something she wasn't saying, and they had started to get suspicious of her behavior, not only in person but also on social media. She was still posting, and she was very happy, not like a grieving widow at all. She was posting a video of herself doing cartwheels and singing karaoke with friends. There was a picture that she also reposted of herself. It was an old photo of her alone kayaking, and it had bad weather in the background. They had also been informed that she had asked investigators if they would rather go grab a drink instead of searching for Vince. While in the interrogation room, Angelica told them that they were actually already drunk or hungover when they went out kayaking that next day. They were extremely hungover from the night before, but they did get to Bannerman's Island, and they ended up having sex while walking through the gardens and the castle. She had changed into lingerie, and Vince was drinking beers while taking lots of photos of her, and they were both just kind of dancing around. A few hours later, she said that the sky was darkening, and so they tried to find out how rough the water was. You know, they kind of got back in their kayaks to feel it out, but they decided that it was too rough, so they wanted to stay a little bit longer. Now, the volunteer coordinator that Angelica had texted ended up answering Angelica around this time saying, "I think we saw you out there on the dock. How were the geese?" It turned out they really were not allowed to be on this island, especially alone, and the coordinators of the island were actually watching them with their telescopes, saying that these were trespassers who were dancing around. But Angelica messaged her back without a care in the world, saying, "We're leaving now. I'll send more pictures later. Geese are here." This is when the couple got back into their kayaks and began paddling away, even though the weather was not much better and it was even worse than before. But Angelica said that Vince was so happy at this point, saying that it was the adventure of a lifetime that they were having. She also said that Vince forced her to wear a life jacket that day, even though he would not wear one, and he was wearing flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt. Now, Angelica said she quickly saw him struggling against these crazy waves, and then he flipped over. She said he was holding himself up above the water with this small flotation device and just kept staring at Angelica to make sure she was okay, and Angelica was staring back at him. She said that he was hyperventilating and shaking, and she claimed to tell him to hold on, and he was screaming at her to call 911. But friends of Vince claimed that the night before his disappearance, he was partying with his friends, him and Angelica was actually the one who wanted to go home. She did not want to go to the strip club. They said that she was more quiet than a lot of them were, and she didn't really talk to anybody, and she refused to go to the strip club, so Vince just went home with her. But Vince had mentioned something about how he was going to take her kayaking the next day, and his friend called him crazy because he said to look at the water, that it was choppy and it was cold and he shouldn't do it. But for the next 11 hours, Angelica was interrogated.
You watched him drown. I know it's difficult. I know that.
No, I didn't just watch him drown. I tried to do something about it.
How did you really want to save him?
Yeah. Somehow. If he did not say call 911, I would have paddled the out of myself and got to him somehow.
That's a little different from when you told me earlier, though. Why? Why do you keep changing what you're saying? You're confusing me.
I'm sorry.
And that's an issue for me. Killed him?
Yeah.
When you watched him in the water, was a part of you saying, my worries are going away now, and I'm free? And were you almost euphoric that he was going to be gone? You felt that way? Still do.
What are your feelings and emotions knowing that this is about to happen? That when you're going...
I'm, like, ripping in two halves. You know, angels and demons.
What's the demon side saying?
The demon side... Oh, it's not a good side. You guys don't want to see that side of me. That side was telling me, just make it like, let it happen. Just let it go. But the good side was like, safe, we can do it, you're strong.
why the demon side went out?
No, because it's the way he was treating me.
You killed Vinny. Right? No, I'm asking you the question.
You want me to hear it?
I want you to tell me the truth.
I am telling you the truth.
What is the answer to that question?
I didn't want him.
Angelica, what is the true answer to that question?
All right, you need your statement.
What is it?
I wanted him dead, and now he's gone. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
And investigators got exactly what they wanted when she said, "I wanted him dead, and now he's gone." When asked why she wanted him to die, she said that she wanted to be free, that she felt happy, relieved, and euphoric. She explained that Vince was controlling and abusive and that she hated that he always pressured her to have sex and threesomes and go to strip clubs. She said that she wasn't happy with him and his lifestyle, and Angelica said that they did fight the night before about the strip club when they got home, but it ended with them going to bed and snuggling and making up. And when she wasn't being questioned in the interrogation room, she was actually doing yoga. Eventually, Angelica said that she knew that the drain plug on his kayak was taken out that day, but that it had worked the kayak from Plum Point to Bannerman's Island, so she didn't believe that it was anything to worry about. But then as the waves started rushing in, she saw the kayak filling up and him going down. She was very vague with the questions that the police officers had for her, and the detectives were infuriated that she wasn't repeating what she allegedly told them when they were on the island with her. They claimed on that island she had told them that she took out the drain plug and took a piece of the paddles, this little ring that connected them together. She took that apart so that he could not use them properly to move about. She also allegedly said that when he was drowning, she took a paddle away so he couldn't use it as a flotation device. However, they didn't record this, they had no proof, and she was denying it at this point, saying that they made it all up, and no one knew who to believe. Some of Angelica's friends were saying that she was just in mourning but trying to put on a brave face, which made her act a little bit different. They had heard her say that she believed there was still a chance to find him out in the water. They said that she was a girl with big dreams and a good heart. But his mother, Vince's mother, said that she was in absolute shock when this happened and that Vince was so good to Angelica and she murdered it.
She wasn't sitting there crying, that's for sure. No, she just went about her business.
Then New York State Police had a news conference where they said to the public that Angelica had implicated herself in this crime.
State police investigators who had been pursuing leads in this case developed enough information to charge Groswald with intentionally causing the death of Villafor. He was there, we were there as well. We were on Bannerman's Island in an effort to pinpoint other areas to search. State police divers spent several days in the Hudson River looking for Mr. Villafor, and as I mentioned before, the contact with her, trying to clarify exactly where they may have been, was part of that. The meeting was, there was a group there that's, I believe they do the preservation of Bannerman's Island. She's part of that group, and our investigators were there and began to talk to her in an effort to reconstruct those final seconds of Mr. Villafor's life.
At this point, the river was still being searched for a body. There were rescue boats, there were helicopters, there were professionals and volunteers. And the next day, on April 30th, Angelica was officially arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Nearly a month later, Vince's body was recovered, only a mile from Plum Point. And 3 days later, Angelica was indicted for murder in the second degree and manslaughter in the second degree as well. It was found, when digging into the history of this couple, that when they got together, Angelica quit all of her jobs and began to just do yoga all the time, do some photography, and she would volunteer on the island occasionally as well. It was unknown if Vince was accepting of this or if they often had arguments about money or about her not working. There was also the fact that prior to his death, Vince had opened up an insurance policy and made Angelica a beneficiary, meaning that she could get up to $500,000 for his death. He told his sister Laura he was only making her a beneficiary so she could be covered under his health insurance. He had emailed Laura to help with all the paperwork. He kind of sent it all to her, and he ended the email with a joke saying, hopefully she doesn't off me in Europe, with a winky face. But was this simply a joke, or did he know his fate? By 2015, a gag order was placed on this case, meaning that nobody could talk about what was happening in the case in the media, and what was happening would shock many. You see, Angelica was actually pleading guilty to criminally negligent homicide, saying that she could have recognized the risks of being out on the water, but she didn't kill him. However, this was because her choice was either to plead guilty to this and possibly get 4 years, or to go to trial for murder and possibly get life. Her bond was then set at $9 million. Now, Angelica had been married and divorced twice prior to Vince, just as Vince was, and one of her ex-boyfriends had actually agreed to talk to the police about her. His name was Michael Colvin, and he said that he lived with her back in 2009. And Michael said that he wouldn't have believed that she would have murdered anybody, but she definitely did have a dark side, especially with her angry streaks. He had said that when they broke up, they decided that they needed to figure out what to do with her cat, Mietka. And Angelica wanted her. And in order to get her, she threatened to break into his house if he wouldn't just give her the cat. And then he got into his car one day and was trying to leave, and Angelica laid down behind him and would not let him go without running her over in order to get the cat. And at this point, Michael just gave her the cat, even though she didn't have even a home for herself. Vince's friend Sherry then claimed that Angelica had actually smacked Vince across the face when she was drunk and would keep doing it because he wasn't getting mad. Another one of his friends named Amanda said that Vince had texted her a few weeks prior to his murder or death, saying that he didn't think it was going to work out between the two of them. Yet the next day he did take that back, saying that Angelica was scared of losing him and wanted to make up. When they were supposed to get married, they were fighting all the time, and he said that he was going to kick her out, but he never did. On November 6th of 2015, Angelica was interviewed by the media for the first time. This was for 2020, and she said that she was being accused of something she wasn't capable of, and that this interrogation she had gone through was her breaking point, that they were asking the same questions hundreds of times just so that she would give them what they wanted.
Did you kill Vince?
No.
That day?
No, I didn't kill him.
Did you do anything that you knew might lead to him being hurt?
No, I loved him. I did not want to kill him. And I didn't do anything to kill him.
She said that she was being cooperative and that she felt like she could not leave, and that they misunderstood her from the very beginning because she didn't want to be free from him. She just wanted to be free from the lifestyle that was more sexual. She said, "I'm not a killer, I'm a good person." At the trial, the defense brought in the forensic scientist Michael Archer, who said that the confession that the police heard on Bannerman's Island is meaningless, and the evidence didn't support a homicide, but a tragic accident. That he had no life jacket on, he had alcohol in his system, it was frigid, cold water, and this was nothing but an accidental death. Tests were actually done on the Hudson River with the kayak drain plug pulled to see if that could cause him to basically capsize, go over. And it was found that that little hole is not enough to drown the kayak. On November 8th of 2017, Angelica was sentenced to 1.5 years to 4 years in prison, and she said, "Never would I have imagined waking up one day and finding myself behind bars, charged with murdering the man I love. This entire process has been incredibly difficult for me. I don't believe I have been treated fairly." Now, due to the time she had already served, she was released in about a month. It was December 21st of 2017, and she walked out of jail. She would be on parole for the next 16 months and did face deportation.
Graswald has been in custody for nearly 3 years in the Orange County Jail, while the criminal case that made headlines nationwide played out. Today, Graswald let her lawyer do the talking before heading to eat a steak lunch and FaceTiming relatives.
To be sure, reconnecting is going to be difficult, and reconstructing her life is going to be difficult. Her day-to-day, her reality is much different today than it was 32 months ago when she went into jail.
Vince's family, though, were devastated at this point because they believed that Angelica had killed Vince.
I don't ever want to see her again if I don't have to.
We believe in the American justice system,
and we do not believe in the sentencing of it all, but it is over now, and we need to go on.
However, Angelica was saying that she didn't care what anybody thought because they could say whatever they wanted, but she knows the truth as well as God. But at this point, the civil court battle for Vince's money then began, and the money, if Angelica got any, would go to her legal team after being charged with murder. But in order for her not to receive anything, Vince's family had to prove that she had recklessly caused his death. Angelica could have backed out, left the family alone, let them keep all their money, but she did not do this, and she ended up winning an undisclosed portion of money in 2018. However, then a wrongful death lawsuit was filed against Angelica by Vince's sister, Laura. She said that Vince was frustrated with Angelica all the time for not working, and that Laura had actually gotten a text the day of Vince's death of this map of exactly where they were going on this kayak trip, and he said he would text her again later. Vince wasn't one that was overly paranoid about having people know what he was doing, and he would really never tell them until he was already done with his adventure. So she knew that this was strange. He never texted her afterwards, and he had also always told everyone that he refused to cross the Hudson River because it was too dangerous. When Laura went to be with Angelica right after Vince's disappearance, and she thought that she was helping this grieving widow, she saw Vince's smoker being offered to one of the people on the search team just moments after he had disappeared by Angelica. She said that Vince wanted them to have it, and Laura's husband, Kevin, said that nothing felt right with her behavior. Laura said the only reason they were okay with Angelica taking the plea deal for criminal negligence is because everyone would then know she did have at least something to do with it. After being released, Angelica went on several different interviews talking about the mistreatment that she had gone through from the police. She said that she grew up around police, she trusted them, and that's why she felt so calm and open to talk to them. She didn't think they were trying to charge her with murder. She would often speak in these interviews about how Vince had pressured her to do very sexual things she didn't want to do. But Vince's mother said that this made her want to scream at Angelica because Vince wasn't like that. And his sister Laura said she didn't know about their sex life. She didn't care, but she doesn't believe that Vince was the kind of person Angelica said he was. The DA then said that she wasn't trying to hurt Vince's family by saying these things. She only wanted to tell the truth for the first time. He said about Angelica, "I see a girl who was beaten up and bullied, charged with a murder she didn't commit and couldn't have committed." Vince's ex-wife, Suzanne, was actually still close with the family after his divorced from her and after his death. She said that everything ended well. She loved him so much. They talked all the time, and there was never any mention from her or anybody else that he was abusive. But many people have a tough time believing that this death that looked accidental, that seemed accidental, could have been a murder. Angelica even said, "I'm a person with feelings. I love people. I love Vince. I love his family. I love my friends and his friends. I didn't just go out and cold-heartedly let him die. I tried to help him. I tried to paddle toward him. It's just not fair how they're portraying me as a cold-blooded murderer or killer." She claimed that she was in danger too, and it was a miracle that she survived, but now she was guilty. There was also many talks about how odd she appeared, but people often said that Russian women are not meant to be seen crying or acting weak or broken, which made her appear strange to Americans. Now in 2019, the free Angelica did do an interview with Elle where she took a photo in her bathroom under the water as if she were drowning, which is a bit strange. She was living in a small cabin at the time, working at a camp tending to farm animals, taking different photos, and she had a Labradoodle named Beacon and was baptized as a born-again Christian. Now there was a lake nearby where she said that she does still like to kayak, and this is while she was still on her parole. Once off, she had decided she was going to move back to Latvia to meet her new nephew. Now she told the Elle interviewer, who was Kat Stoffel, "Vince loved me. I loved him. He had mentioned that he would die for me if need be, and I feel like he did so I could live. He saved me in a way." She explained that if he wouldn't have been yelling at her to call 911, she probably would have tried to jump in with him to save him instead of paddling toward the shore. She said, I was naive enough to think that I could help him. I was wrong on that one too. I've been in these situations on the Hudson before where it was too dangerous and I always got out of it. So I felt like that night I could too. You know how you get careless? I was careless. So was he. We both were. It cost him. It cost him his life. Now, Angelica is said to be back in Latvia, attending university and working for a ministry. But do you believe that after 11 hours of this interrogation, it was easier to get a falsified confession from Angelica, or what they believed to be a confession, because nothing she said was directly saying she murdered him, only that she was okay with him being dead? In this case, do you believe there was any evidence of a murder? Was the statement she made to police true, or were they unethically forced out of her? Was Angelica innocent in a tragic accident? Was she a survivor? Or was she a kind of killer who used a method of murder that appeared to be simply an accident? Because what kind of killer, if you think about it, uses this method of murder, of taking out a drain plug and hoping that that drowns your husband and that nobody comes to rescue him in time, instead of any other way to kill him? I'd love to know your theories. Do you think that she was guilty in any of this, or did she really just seem odd because she was, either Russian and that's, their culture, or she just didn't know how to deal with things, or that's just how she dealt with things? Or do you think that day she had a plan and followed through with it? Please let me know what you think about this case. It's one of the most bizarre, and the fact that, there was another case that happened on the Hudson River that was a lot like this, that a husband and wife went out on the water, the husband died, and the wife was never charged with murder. She was never even looked at as a suspect. It was just this accident that he horrifically drowned in the water in bad weather. And yet with Angelica, they immediately said she was a killer? Why did these detectives say that she had confessed to them on the island if she really hadn't? That, I think, is huge. Did they just want to get this case closed? Did they see something in her and decide to lie about a confession because they believe she was guilty? Did they really hear this confession? There are so many questions that I hope that you try to answer for me down below, because I really don't know about this one. But don't ever forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.